Welcome to the desk. I want to go to hi-rez Expo because I don't have to get a haircut. This time I'm joined by Anatoly and my main man, Aggro. Hindu Man's got his feet up somewhere. He'll be casted with Aggro or Adonis a little bit later. But we've got our third match of the day for you. It's Enemy versus SoaR. So far we've seen Envy. Well, we've sort of seen Envy. Let's take a look at the standings. They don't have anything to show for it. They've got a big old goose egg, but SoaR and Denial both come up clean with 3 points.
SoaR just looked so dominant in their set against Envious. The way Andinster was able to control the pace of the game in their set, playing the Alkwang and then the Thor. I think that this might actually be Andinster's tournament.
It could be, but this is going to be a big test up against Enemy. But for me, seeing SoaR up against Enemy, yes, it's going to be entertaining, but what Enemy are we going to see here? Is it going to be the Enemy of the spring split, of Season 2, that looked really, really great, or is it going to be the fall split Envy online that finished 7th?
You know, it's very interesting because there was a lot of time in between. You know, being in Group D was actually very favorable for teams like Envy and teams like Enemy, teams that sort of struggled to get their feet out from underneath them because they had all this time to prepare. They got to watch the teams before them, and I came in saying, look, Envy, they certainly weren't anybody to write home about during the regular season, but perhaps given this elongated amount of time, they might be able to come out on top. Not the case. With Enemy, is that I think it could be different because Envy, nobody really could identify what the issue was, but with the case of Enemy, I think there was some clear issues that they just needed time to work out.
Absolutely. Envy doesn't have their identity found out quite yet, whereas Enemy has always had their identity. Their identity is the leadership behind PainDeViande, and no matter who is behind him, he's able to really rally his troops to victory. So I'm expecting, despite, you know, PandaCat missing the first half of the online split, that they should still be able to perform really well on that because we saw what they were able to do during the Epsilon Invitational, bringing it to 5 games.
I mean, this is a team full of veterans. That's one thing that Enemy definitely has over Envy, and your point about Envy's lack of identity is very, very well put. And Enemy, like you mentioned, has that identity. They've got the experience. They know what they want to do as a team. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together. And like you mentioned, Tom, they had a lot of time in between the end of the online split and now to find their identity again and put it together, and I suspect they're going to do a very good job this LAN.
Exactly. I have really high hopes for Enemy because, like we said, they were able to just take something head on and make an actionable change. I think it was very obvious to anybody that has watched Smite for a while that the jungle was rocky after PandaCat came back. That was pretty much a big duh. And then there was that whole PandaCat getting destroyed by the Jing way, right? But you have over a month to fix that. Envy just kind of went like, well, we don't know what's wrong, so how do we fix that? Enemy with a clear plan, I think that will make them in a better spot, but the problem is they're going up against SoaR.
SoaR is just definitely one of those strong teams that you always have to watch out for. And out of the mid lane matchup, I would say, between Khaos right now and Snoopy. Snoopy has been able to show more of a traditional mage the last set, but Khaos specifically, his god pool, he's been playing a lot of traditional mages, but it's always been a relatively small god pool, I would say.
One of the bigger knocks on Khaos is definitely that god pool, and how big really is it? But if he gets one of those gods that he's comfortable on, like a Giannis, like a Zhang did back in Season 2, he can make big plays happen. We saw a lot of that out of him.
I mean, Khaos is, honestly, he's one of my favorite players off the battlefield. He's very eager to play the game, he's very eager to learn, and he's very eager to share that sort of experience amongst everybody. Of course, he's a Long Island brother of mine, but he's also got a lot behind that.
Khaos is probably the most hardworking player ever on the scene ever. Of all the players combined together, Khaos probably does more research and work to become a better player than all of them.
He definitely wants to win like a lot, and he's put in so much work to really just get there. So I do expect him to be close to the top eventually.
He's nice. When I started playing middle again, I was like, yo, do you max the 1 or the 2 on range? And I was maxing the 2, which is really bad because the cooldown's like 18 seconds compared to 10. And he was like, I just expected him to be like, the 1. But he said the 1 because of this and this. He gave me like paragraphs. I was like, wow, okay.
I remember back when Pain picked him up, he was probably like bottom tier, honestly. And he's worked hard. I would assume I haven't been on a team with him or anything, but his hard work has showed if he's worked hard. He is one of the top mid laners in NA now.
Oh man, that video might be the most accurate video that we've seen so far with the players, right? You hear a lot of the joking and the jest, but everybody there mentions how hard this guy works, and then it ends off with just him being a goofball. I think that's Khaos in a nutshell.
And I think what he said about himself was so true, about saying how humble he is as a person, how he's always willing to learn no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, and it just synergizes so well with Pain and the rest of Enemy. I mean, obviously the very public split between Pain and Khaos and the rest of Enemy after Worlds last season, and there's a very good reason why Khaos and Pain are still together. They work very well together. Pain really appreciates that work ethic. I mean, you could hear it in his voice whenever he talks about him.
Yeah, I mean, Khaos he's worked to where he's gotten, and he's achieved that. Now, Snoopy, he's a hard worker as well, but I think a couple of people out there are still questioning whether or not he's achieved that mid lane dominance. Here, he's newer to the role here, guys, but he's... How would you say, actually, that's a question, not a statement. How would you say that Snoopy is acclimating to the mid lane, Tully?
Well, I would say based on his performance in the Epsilon Invitational, it was very underwhelming, I would say. He's only had one good game in that whole tournament with an Uller, and that was a Hunter, you know, something that he's transitioned from in that position. But playing more traditional mages now in that last set, playing Raw both games, I'm really surprised at how quick of a change he's been able to make.
I mean, he looked great so far this weekend, and that's really all that matters if you're rooting for SoaR. But overall, I mean, I think it was, I bet you Snoopy would agree with me that he wasn't where he wanted to be at the beginning of this split, and we've seen him consistently get more and more comfortable there. He's continually expanding that God pool, showing off the Raw so far. We'll see what else he's gotten prepared, and but overall, I think the transition has been a little bit more elongated than he would have liked, but he's getting to where he wants to be.
So I got to be the bad cop. Because
Yes.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen Snoopy really perform the way I would like a mid laner to perform yet. I think there's still growing pains going on, and SoaR, luckily for them, they've got everything else working on 8 cylinders. They can afford to... Don't get me wrong, Snoopy's not being carried by any stretch of the imagination, but Snoopy is certainly not performing up to the level that the rest of SoaR is, and I think that's okay.
But I think it's okay because every team has a different dynamic, right? Not every team needs your mid laner to be your big damage carry, and so Snoopy is filling a different role than that right now. They can rely on Baskin, they can rely on Andinster to be the ones who are going to put up the big numbers and make the big plays. Snoopy just has to do his job, and he's done that perfectly.
And speaking of making the big plays, the man on your screen right there, PandaCat. He's such an interesting person off the field. He's honestly one of the younger players in the league, and if I dare say so, one of the more mature players in the league. I think it's really funny how that works out, and a lot of people are hoping he makes a big impact tonight.
It's funny that you put it that way for maturity because he's so young. I think he's like 16 or 17.
Yeah.
But the way he speaks and handles himself, he's just so mature, and the confidence just radiates off of him every time we're in a conversation together. I feel like this guy's like in his mid-20s.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great point. He definitely carries himself very well, understands what he's saying and what he wants to get across, and he kind of, I don't know, it's kind of surprising when you watch his gameplay because the way he plays the game is so, you know, pedal to the metal, going in all the time, just wants to make the plays, not overly aggressive, kind of very Zapman-esque. We call him Zapman
Yes.
2.0, Tom, that you're the kind of Zapman Jr. is what you like to call him. And so to hear how well he thinks about the game, and you went into a great conversation about his opinion on the different hunters' legacies. You know, what's Zapman's legacy? What's Bera's legacy? Where's his legacy going to be? That's all very interesting talk from a guy who's so young to the scene as well as in age.
And it starts honestly today. I don't want to be overly grandiose, but it starts today. This team, Enemy, are fighting to make it to Super Regionals, fighting to make it to Worlds after that, and this is sort of the first mark. And how does he do it? He gets the first selection hunter, Jing right there. Enemy have no concerns about him adjusting after his vacation.
The god pool for PandaCat, he's just such a diverse god pool, I would say, and for the most part. And he was actually mentioning how I'm surprised that teams haven't been prioritizing hunters a little bit earlier on. For Ocean specifically out of Envious, they haven't been getting his god before the secondary ban phase, and as a result, he got Chronos both games against SoaR, and then in the second set, he hasn't really gotten the Soul or the Jing that he's really known for.
Yeah, that's relatively true. I do like the Chronos on my man's Oceans, but nonetheless, Jing will be paired up with Sobek, although that, of course, could wind up in the solo lane as well. But we'll see Zeus. So Zeus is a character that I feel like he always comes and goes, irrelevant of buffs or nerfs or whatnot, and we missed him for a while. but Khaos is going to bring him back.
Interesting choice here. I mean, very immobile, kind of gets eaten alive by Nemesis sometimes.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if he's going to go for an early winged blade to try and immune that slow and just give him the extra HP that he needs to survive. Khaos's positioning here is going to be very, very important. We'll have to see if he's able to get close enough to Ra to deal the damage necessary to kill the healer, because even if Zeus is immobile and can be killed easily, he's always going to bring the big numbers whenever you hit 3.
Well, so that seems to be enemy's game plan. We've seen a lot of people deal with this, or attempt to deal with the healing strategy, right? And whether they go Chonga mid and really pull something out of nowhere, or they just itemize correctly. Enemy are looking to just blow Ra up.
Or they're looking for a strategy of their own to get sustain options on their side. The Guan Yu is still available, and knowing PainDeViande, that could be an option for them. Sobek and Guan Yu can interchange between that solo and support position, so I'm still liking enemy's chances.
So SoaR banned out the Odin here, and Odin has people just absolutely divided. Some people feel like Odin, he's excellent. That is obviously what you choose into Ra, and other people are saying, why on earth would you bring this god to a party? So what do you guys take on Odin? Is he still relevant?
Yes, up against Ra, we saw, what was it? Sorgo, Ra, Erlong, Shen. I mean, that's the time you pick Odin. Up against those two gods specifically is when you pick Odin. I am surprised at how little we're seeing it banned and picked. Here, SoaR identified that it could give them trouble with the Ra and the Nemesis and decided to ban it away.
It's also a different style about the regions. We saw a lot of Odins coming out of Europe specifically. North America doesn't really prioritize Odin the same exact way. They want to go for a more diverse option because it's kind of a one-trick pony Odin, right? You jump in, you cage, and then there goes your whole kit, right? You force out the Phantom, that's all fine and dandy, and you're relying on the cooldown of the ultimate to carry you through the team fights.
Very true. He does one thing. Granted, he does that thing very, very well, and that's why we see the ban. A Bastet ban comes out. That's one of Verizial, or he's going by Verizial? Shattered.
Shattered, Scream, Verizial, they're all the same
They
guy.
call him Scream.
Yeah, they do call him Scream.
In team, they call him Scream. Then he changed his name to Verizial. Now he's known as Shattered, but his team still calls him Scream. Either way, he's a very adept Bastet, and in recent memory, DJ Perdigas tore a LAN up with Bastet. So I think it's a combination of players remembering that he's good and the cat's good, then just ban him out.
Very surprising that we see Susano here. The first time since he's been nerfed. I mean, the troll game with, what was that, Energy picking him up in solo or whatever. But we'll have to see how Susano is able to do the extra damage on the one, spread out over all 3 now, slowed down, as well as the big one, which is the Typhoon does not knock up unless it charges up all the way.
Yeah, you know, I think that will affect the character, but all in all, I think Susano's grab is probably one of his most powerful abilities, and looking at enemy's draft, I think they're going to try to use that a lot. SoaR Gaming, on the other hand, Ra, Nemesis, Bacchus, Amy in the solo lane, and then, of course, Rama. How you feeling, Tolly?
I love the late game out of SoaR. The damage coming from Rama is going to be really big trouble. On the flip side, though, enemy with the Zeus, it could be problematic as long as Shatter can keep finding the perfect initiations.
It's going to be tough. I like the Sobek pick into Ra. We didn't talk about it a whole lot, but it shuts down the healing well. I like enemy's composition.
Enemies wet, wild, and full of lightning. SoaR, it's all about the sun. Kevin and Hindu, take it away.
Thanks so much, After I'm the analyst as well. Obviously, very important game here. This is probably the biggest one of the day between Enemy and SoaR. Enemy looking to bounce back after their online performance that didn't go their way. And obviously, you've got SoaR as well, who looks strong so far.
I mean, after day one, clearly Envy is not prepared for the level of play I think that this group is going to bring. And now it's Enemy's turn. You know, again, really dominant spring split, really weak online split after, you know, taking energy to all 5 games at the Epsilon Invitational. Really stark contrast here. And so the question is, what enemy are we going to get? And honestly, despite it being the group of death, I actually think this is the best draw that Enemy could have had because they got that extra month. It was the last group they got drawn into. And even though the competition is tougher, I think they got a lot of time to practice, and I'm excited what they can bring.
Well, I'm looking at SoaR Gaming's composition here, and it reminds me of a Lady Gaga song.
Rama, Ama?
Yeah. Rama. Yep.
Ama.
No, stop. The joke is gone. Susano, though.
I'll keep going.
Susano and the Kumbhakarna. I'm guessing Marauder is going to be solo lane Sobek here, or will we see the Kumbha solo?
We're gonna see the Sobek solo, I believe. Obviously, You can put a Kumba in solo. We don't see it too often. I know a lot of teams were experimenting with it actually at the start of this year, but I think Sobek is just more tenured, really easy to escape ganks, really good control, and just his base damage and the farm you can get in the soul lane, I feel like he's just going to be more effective.
But that's why I'm discussing this a little bit more, because of the fact that Sobek in the support role for this mid combo of the Susano Zeus is so much stronger than a Kumbhakarna for the setup for Zeus.
It is stronger for the setup, but it's weaker for the peel. I mean, that's hard to say because it's Sobek, but it's only really the tail whip. I mean, for Kumba, you're going to be able to ult someone up. You're going to be able to root multiple people. Huge mez as well. This Kumba is a pick to save Zeus, not set up for Zeus, and I do like that style. Susano is interesting. I actually thought they were going to go the Hunbats. We were discussing it where we both said we feel like Hunbats would be the best option here, but we actually didn't think we didn't think Shattered was going to play it.
We didn't put it in Shattered's God pool for the most part. I mean, he can play it, but it's not something he goes to. The Bastet, we understand why. They could have gone for the Hunbats ban there, but what would you rather deal with?
Again, I think the Susano's picked up for just that extra little peel. Both rely on pretty big ultimates. Hunbat's a little bit more effective, but Susano still has a really strong knockup. Once it's fully charged, does a lot of damage, and you're knocked up for quite some time. On top of that, you have the Wind Siphon and just that constant ability to, pull people into Zeus or pull people away from Zeus. And so this composition is really just Zeus, Jingwei does damage, everyone else protect those.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the Sobek pick here was just enforced more than anything to make sure that we didn't see Jigz get it. So they had the wombo combo of the old Nemesis into a raw roll combination.
And clearly you definitely don't want to let that go. I mean, even in the picks and bans, we thought it would be the Sobek picked up for SoaR immediately, but obviously Nem or enemy would have responded with the Nemesis. And so I think there was a little bit of mind games forcing him to the Sobek, but Sobek's a guy you can never really go wrong with, and that's the biggest part.
Pretty solid, but at the same time, you're allowing Amaterasu to farm up in the early game. She's not the weakest in the early game, but her early game is where she struggles the most, and Sobek going to do the same sort of thing there. So it's just a farm off where, in my eyes, Andinster could look to gank. He loves to solo lane ganks.
It's possible, and he is on a Nemesis who works really well against a Sobek. Obviously, that super hard counter, if the Sobek dashes, immediately gets ulted, has to go into his ult, but it doesn't really, it's not that strong. Sure, he has a big AoE slow, but I mean, as long as he's just slowed enough for Snoopy to raw snipe him off that combo, and we have seen that combo go pretty well with the Al Quang. I'm interested because Snoopy doesn't have as much setup in this game as he did in the previous game. He's really only got Jigz' knockup that's reliable. Obviously, the slows across the team can be useful, but it's still not a guaranteed hit.
And you mentioned the slows there, but you do have PainDeViande on this game. Has started off with the sprint, which we didn't see in the Envy game there, up against the boys of Denial when they actually had that Nemesis again. The sprint will allow him in the early stages to get him out of danger if these slows do come through.
And I think that's because a shell's also useful for Zeus to stay alive, but a lot of times, like, if the Zeus gets jumped on, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
So he gets Zeus to lane very, very quickly there with that sprint.
enemy.
Now that call there is just to get him lane pressure early on against the Raw a little bit quicker, which allows him to rotate a little bit earlier.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. I really love it. Look at this. I mean, Snoopy,
that was quick.
The wave is already completed before he can even get his one-off, which is going to guarantee mid-harpies on the right-hand side. You see Susano rotating over, and Andinster has to deal with that wave in mid. He's got to share that.
Well, it does give Andinster a little bit of an advantage because he gets some mid-lane farm, but he's going to lose, obviously, the Fire Elementals and the right-hand harpies. They'll get the left ones there, so if anything, Andinster gets a lead there, but at the same time, Shattered is going to be even because of it.
And that's fine. Get this Zeus ahead. Get him into his defensive items. He's going to want a Winged Blade relatively early again. There's a fair amount of slows on the side of SoaR, and so he's going to want that mobility and obviously the passive to keep him alive when he gets Nim ulted.
Now, the wind-up time of Shattered's first ability on the Susano, that did get hit a little bit, so it takes a little bit longer to wind up to start the damage off, and it's spread over 3 hits now.
And the thing is, the damage is basically the same. I mean, yeah, it's spread over 3 and instead of the 2 where you're going to have a more reliable damage source. Obviously, if you have to rely on the dash, that could put you in a bad position, but Susano is so mobile, right? When he uses those abilities, he's going to get the movement speed anyway. He also still has his ult, he still has his jet stream. He has a lot of options, even if he does have to put himself in an awkward spot to get all the damage off.
Well, we did see the Hunters over there in the duo lane, PandaCat versus Metyankey, and we didn't do any talk about that on the desk at all, but I think this matchup could be very interesting between these two. PandaCat had a lot of things to say about Metyankey.
PandaCat's got a lot of respect for Met. He thinks they're very similar right now in both their play styles, as well as the skill level they bring. He says, we'll both make mistakes, and we both will always punish each other. And this enemy versus SoaR matchup has become pretty iconic this season. We saw them go back and forth in the Spring Split, back and forth at DreamHack Masters. They went to all 5 games. Again, the games at DreamHack, or excuse me, Epsilon Invitational, like this set for Season 3, I think has been my favorite consistent one.
Well, it's also SoaR had something to prove back then. It's now Enemy, after that poor online performance here, that it's Enemy that have to prove that they can stay with the big boys once more.
And, I mean, this is still a team. We know what they can bring. And again, I think we're going to see the real Enemy here. We're going to see the Enemy from Spring Split, from DreamHack Masters, from Epsilon Invitational. They have shown up to play, and that extra month they got to kind of fix whatever issues they were having. Gonna pay off a lot.
Well, surprisingly, the Fire Elemental's gonna go the way of SoaR there for free. Enemy did get the first rotation, as we spoke about, but the second one goes the way of SoaR, uncontested.
We saw Shattered try and set up a kill on the left-hand side, but the issue is that PainDeViande and Panda are so pushed up. There's not gonna be that opportunity. Jigz and Metyankey are not leaving their tower anytime soon.
And then because of that, you can see the lead that Andinster is starting to develop now in the jungle. Early on over Shattered as level 5 achieve for PandaCat and PainDeViande there. Andy going to take his back copies before his speed buff spawns. No aggression yet, but no real surprise.
I think we're going to be seeing Gold Fury fights really be the main contention point. But look at this. They know that SoaR are on the right side of the map there. I think Khaos spotted them rotating over there, which means this is going to be a free uncontested red. And Jigz and Metyankey not even going to respond. I like the decision.
I don't think he could, though, could it? I mean, look at the full minion wave there. They were pushed into the tower as well. This Jing wave combo got lane pressure early because of the sprint as well, just because it got into those boards a little bit quicker.
And I love seeing this, just two high-level teams facing off where it's like, okay, we know we can't contest. Why even bother? You'll see a lot of teams sometimes like, can we fight this? Can we contest? Maybe we could steal, but they miss a ton of farm. So we're just like, there's no point. We're not playing to get the red buff on the second spawn. We're playing for these mid-game team fights and to utilize that raw combo and kind of sustain.
Well, both these mid laners went start off with a Soul Stone, both working towards boots now as well. Can see a little bit of physical defense coming out of Snoopy early on. Obviously, he's going to have to deal with Shattered in this game. Khaos, on the other hand, not so worried about it.
A little bit surprised to see it, considering there's a Sobek in the solo. Oh. Snoopy just trying to steal those away, and he actually did that a lot so far, where he really doesn't care about spinning his ultimate, try and steal red buffs, try and steal mid harpies. He actually values the farm over that cooldown if his team is in a position where they're not really trying to fight in the early game.
Well, I'm not spoken about the solo lane because it is a Sobek versus an Amaterasu, but it
Resident
is
sleeper.
Baskin as well, and Baskin did solo Cyclone Spin earlier on today as well in a very dominant performance there. Now he's going to get the Fire Elementals on that side as well, just extending his lead.
And so a lot of North American teams really like to play through solo lane pressure, but this time neither team has it, and so that's why we're seeing such a slow-paced game. They're looking more for these Gold Fury fights. It's going to come down to, honestly, who gets picked first, whether it's Khaos or Snoopy. Both of their positioning has to be perfect in the first 15 minutes of this game.
Well, I do see PainDeViande there, headed back to base, picked up the reinforced shoes and the Mark of the Vanguard too. Neither of the supports going for the gold option of the Talaria that we've seen many times before, but I think Pain may be looking for something by picking up that Vanguard so quickly.
This is just power spike timing on these Vanguards where so early on, supports don't really have a ton of gold, especially considering he didn't go Talaria or Traveler's Shoes, so he's not going to have that extra gold gain or, you know, gold gain throughout the match. And so this is just going to help him deal with the power spikes of Snoopy getting those penetration boots, of Warrior Tavik being completed for Andinster without needing to invest a ton of gold. It's just more effective against those timers.
Now, these days as well, I mean, I talk about a Gold Fury fight who has an advantage there, Adonis, but that's never the case. I mean, these days, it's either a pick or catching someone out of position where you end up going for the Gold Fury and sneaking in away.
No.
You don't want to force a straight up 5v5.
Neither, but, you know, at a high level, all teams know if you group up on a Gold Fury and you burn all your abilities, and the other team is still, you know, 5 strong, it's not going to go the way you expected it. So you really do have to focus on the picks, focus on team fighting, focus on baiting. That's actually what Denial did a lot of in their set against Envy. We saw them bait Gold Furies perfectly. It's very rare to see Gold Furies be baited that well.
Well, Shattered doing his back RPs here with Khaos as well, just continuing to farm up, see where the builds end up going. At the moment, you can see the pings coming out from both teams. The speed buffs are about to spawn again. That red buff on the left-hand side could be available for enemy to steal once more, but this time they don't have the lane pressure.
A little bit different. Also, they don't have the ward coverage to compensate for it, so they're a little bit worried. You know, it's a little bit later in the game. They're not sure where Andinster and Snoopy are, so they're just going to play it safe. There's no need to try and get pressure there.
I'm looking at the gold difference between the two teams. It's not much, but it's a small lead for enemy right now at 200. Experience marginal as well, but it just depends on who it goes to.
The only difference was that red buff steal, and I think that early game where they got to lane fast, but this is what enemy are so good at.
Well, they
knowing
went for the
when
red buff
to do
last
this.
time. The snipe's coming out early from Rama there, and Jigz is there to reset. PandaCat at half health already, but look at the focus on Khaos. Khaos going to get hit by Baskin, and Khaos is going to fall down. Snoopy picked him up with a snipe.
Shattered's got to get away. PainDeViande still hanging around there. Andinster's looping around, and he realizes he's not going to be able to stop that, but really surprising from enemy. Incredibly early
We just
Zeus ult
discussed
coming
that.
out of Chaos. I think they were just not thinking SoaR would respond. I mean, SoaR was there the second enemy started up, and they just didn't
Engagement on
respect
Marauder,
it.
knocked up in place, lots of damage, and already Marauder's dead. Pain's going to flop away as fast as he can with the belly rush, just getting back to safety there. But Gold Fury goes the way of SoaR, as well as 2 kills overall
That's
now.
preparation coming out of SoaR. They know what enemy love to do. They faced off against them, I think, 11 or 12 times throughout Season 3. And every single game, we always see enemy get these snuck Gold Furies very early on, especially with Zeus. They love it with Zeus and Raijin.
Well, it's kind of like they tested the water of that red buff invade earlier on. The first speed buff rotation, they invaded the red buff. Second speed buff spawn, what do? Look for the Gold Fury instead. This time, though, SoaR were wise to it. And surprisingly enough, Andinster chose to go and defend the Gold Fury over getting his speed. That's not a real jungler.
Well, he knows his speed isn't going to get stolen at the time, and that's, if he's like, if there's any chance that speed buff is stolen,
Shat
he's
is in
done.
a world of hurt
Nice
here.
peel.
Great peel coming out from Marauder, though, with that tail whip, just to get him away. Obviously, it was only a tail whip, but it still did enough to get him out.
Heartseeker picked up by Shatter there, and that's not the changed Heartseeker either, I believe. Playing on the 319 patch.
Now, the Heartseeker is still good, though, overall. I mean, it does give you increased power on the next ability usage once you're at full stacks of that one as well, and it gives you attack speed when it is stacked up on top of that.
I mean, it's a really useful, cheap item. I mean, this is like, I think, 1,800 gold, 1,700 something, 25 power, 10% movement speed. The base stats aren't good, but if you're effectively utilizing that passive to get your bonus power and utilize that attack speed, very good on Susano. Useful on Nemesis as well, very similar style.
And I think it was a very slept-on item, Heartseeker, overall, until we buffed it just recently, where he's going to see an increase in it overall, and the passive of the attack speed going to stay. I think people have actually recognized it is still a good ability, good actual item already.
It's the variance that I think a lot of people don't like, right? When you buy an item like Brawlers, you know what you're getting. You're getting 40 power, 20 pin, and a little. The anti-healing's kind of just extra.
I mean, you say that,
but with Heartseeker, it's not like you don't have direct control over that. You do, but it's not all the time. It's not there all the time. It's not consistent.
I get you. I mean, you get that with Doom Orb and things like that, though. I mean, you got to stack things. It's the same sort of thing.
But it's not interactive throughout the match. It's just you get stacks and that's it. It's just raw power. Sure, if you die, you gotta farm up some more stacks, but it's still you're just buying those stats for the entirety that you're alive.
Better example of it is Soulstone. That's exactly the same sort of thing as a Heartseeker for the most part.
That's very similar, where you have to play around it, where sometimes you want to get up that passive before utilizing or before engaging, just because of that extra power it gives you.
Now, I would say in the early game, did any team really have an advantage? I don't want to say either side was really strong in the early stages, but obviously that first Gold Fury going the way of SoaR now has put enemy on the back foot even more.
The only team that I think had an advantage would have been SoaR if they had utilized that Nemesis Bacchus combo, but it's not as easy against enemy, who make sure to position themselves really well. We saw PainDeViande doing a good job of rotating the mid, and you know that's the thing. It's really hard to engage on a Kumba. He has so much to deal with Bacchus, right? He can interrupt the belch. He can knock you up before you intoxicate. He can root you in place so you can't get to his, you can't get to his back line. So many options, and it's actually really annoying trying to initiate into a Kumba. You almost would rather have the Kumba be aggressive and have his abilities wasted on initiation.
I mean, you talk about initiation, I'm pretty sure that's what enemies are going to be looking for from the Sobek, played by Marauder here. They're going to wait for the team fights, look for the plucks later on, and leave Pain on the backside to peel for his carries.
But he's got to be careful against that Nemesis. Again, Nemesis, such a hard counter to Sobek. When he dashes in, Andinster can actually just take that and then immediately turn around, ult him, and just focus on him.
I was going to say, I mean, he will be tankier as a solo lane Sobek, but at the same time, that's just more stats to steal
It's
for
just
Nemesis.
more protections for Nemesis when Andinster ults him.
So into the mid lane we go once again. Level 11 online from Marauder here as he's up against Baskin, who has somehow developed a 3-level lead in the solo lane by just superior farming.
Well, it's 2 now, you know. But I mean,
you got the first kill, obviously.
So Sobek is very similar to Amaterasu, where, weak laning phase early game, but the difference is Amaterasu, once she hits 9, 10, she has one ability that clears the wave. And I mean, look at this. We could watch this for an hour. Marauder just auto-attacking minions. It just takes so long, whereas Amaterasu is going to have that quick clear now that they've hit level 9. Also, the movement speed going to allow her to rotate around the map, get to back harpies, share some camps with Andinster faster, and I don't think Marauders had that ability to split those camps.
Do you think Sobek needs a passive when he's in this pirate skin, similar to Erlang Shen, where his parrot attacks as well when he attacks?
His parrot attacks?
The parrot attacks in that skin,
so
right? Just like Erlang Shen's dog, right?
I could buy into that.
It just help out his clear a little bit better.
How much are we going to charge for it? Like 2,000 gems or something?
Yes. Because it's the skin that influences the game. Like all skins do.
Oh, every skin influences the game. I mean, if you're not looking good, how are you going to perform good?
I mean, do you know that every skin in the game provides you with 10 power if you have the most skins on your team? tricks of the
I
trade.
didn't know that.
Face it play comparison on your screen there, and that is the two hunters that we mentioned earlier on today. Obviously, PandaCat hasn't had the longest split so far this time round, but interesting stat lines from the both.
KDA not there right now for PandaCat again. You know, he just came back into the competitive scene. He missed the first couple weeks of online phase, and he admitted himself he was not performing anywhere near where he needed to.
Love what we saw out of Baskin there. Proxy farming between the tier 1 and tier 2, trying to draw attention over to that right-hand side, just so his team could potentially look for a rotation at the Gold Fury attempt instead.
Just trying to bait yourself. That's one of the most important parts of being in a solo lane, right? Force people to come over to your lane and deal with you if you have a lead and you're able to apply that pressure. And like you mentioned, that 2-level lead that's exactly what's allowing SoaR to do this, and they know it too, and now they're going to be looking for this Gold Fury. They have pressure in the solo lane, they have kind of that dominant pressure, and actually Marauder, very low mana, he needs to be careful.
The plug did connect there onto Metyankey, was forced to purify and roll away. Meanwhile, though, on the backside of that, Pain's going to uppercut out one of the members, which was Andinster, away from the fight. On the front side of things, Marauder's doing a very good job peeling, but on the backside, Baskin's taking on the world.
And now to the sky, the Rom looking for the snipes. Metyankey comes up with the kill on Marauder. PainDeViande in a lot of trouble, trying to run away, does find the root, juking as much as possible, but it doesn't matter. Still gets picked off. Met on the side as well, takes out Khaos, and 3 unanswered kills. No one even close to death on the side of SoaR.
Just annihilation, that's all that was there. The SoaR set it up for a gank attempt. They looked for a fight. They weren't looking for the Gold Fury overall, and they picked him off one by one by one. Nobody got too low on the side of SoaR. You saw Baskin go to the backside to keep the carries busy, and even Andinster was out of that fight with the epic uppercut. He didn't make an impact.
Surprisingly enough, PainDeViande didn't go for a peel. He actually just tried to take Andinster out of the fight, and I do
But
like
that is peel.
And I do like that. That's one of the strongest things about Kumba and Naja is that they have that ability that takes people out of play space. So anytime a god has this window where they just become really powerful, like a Kali, like a Zhang Kui ultimate, or like Andinster, when he ults someone, he's not going to be able to utilize that bonus power or, you know, bonus protections and movement speed. But the issue is Khaos was still left alone by himself in the back line. Marauder wasn't able to peel. He's trying to, you know, save himself. And I mentioned at the start of the fight, he had no mana going into the fight. Sure, he had a blue buff, but that's not going to be good enough after his first round of abilities.
And now because of that, the gold lead is just stretched even further. We're approaching 5,000 now in favor of SoaR Gaming as we carry on. 6,500 experience as well. Most of that lead is in the solo lane for Baskin, though, with that level 17 over the level 13 of the Sobek.
And I expect SoaR to keep this up where they're going to wait for certain times in the game, certain moments in the game. And outside of that, they're just going to farm. They have a lot of respect for enemy. I think against Envy, it was less of this calculated play and more about just trying to kill people.
Well, that second shot was nice. Shattered with a juke back. However, Bacchus is here. Now Shattered's in trouble. Has to sanction, but going to get stunned. Going to allow the cripple to close the gap. Typhoon popped, but it won't knock you up unless it's fully channeled.
Baskin was here as well. PandaCat had no idea. I mean, if that ult from Shattered doesn't hit Baskin, and look at this, Baskin now finding Khaos 4-level lead.
And Khaos is in a real trouble here. Will get stunned, but Purification comes out, and Snoopy was following up beautifully there, but if it wasn't for the Purification, Khaos would have fallen too.
And now Marauder's rotated in. They have to protect this tier 1 tower, but the issue is they've lost Shattered. Khaos has no Purification, so he needs to be really careful with his positioning, and Andinster has ult.
And they're focusing on PainDeViande here by the looks of it, trying to burst him down. Andinster uses the ultimate as well, but the boys of enemy fall back. 5 members strong of SoaR in the mid lane here, and the reinforcements for enemy are slowly trickling through, but I don't think they can stop this tower going down.
And this is when Raw is the strongest. When your team has a slight lead, they've killed a person, and you feel very confident that your team is not going to be able to be bursted down, and so they're just able to utilize that sustain and siege up towers. And, you know, enemy just without Shattered and with Khaos not having any relics to where he can't position himself aggressively, you just can't answer that back.
And the whole plan with Snoopy here, we've seen him build this same build in all the games we've seen him play the Raw so far, with the Rod of Asclepius as his major third item here, just to give him the extra mobility, the extra sustain, and some extra damage.
Super useful active, or excuse me, item. And it also, the extra healing also comes into play for everything, right? Yep. A meditation, I believe lifesteal coming out of Metyankey, Amaterasu as well, switching stances, and it's all minor, but it does add up.
Every single time. So pressure from enemy in the mid lane for a second after losing their tier 1 tower. The boys of SoaR did fall back to go and buy up a couple of items there as well and clear out their own jungle. But all good things point the way of SoaR here. I mean, everyone expects them to be possibly the #1 here, the most likely to be #1. It's looking good right now.
And this has just opened up from a mistake from enemy. That wasn't SoaR making some amazing play. It was enemy going for a Gold Fury, birding all their abilities, and just not thinking that SoaR would respond as quickly as they did. By the time SoaR runs in, right, the Gold Fury's at 60%, and Khaos's ult is down, and all of enemy just don't respond fast enough, they all split up, they get picked off, they lose that gold. That's when we saw the first lead. And then again, at that second Gold Fury, SoaR are not trying to do anything outside of fight them in the windows they know that they're going to be most powerful.
Well, this next Gold Fury that's going to spawn in about a minute's time now is absolutely critical for enemy to get back involved in it. Even if they lose this, if they win the team fight, fine. You know, they've got a chance to take some towers down, but losing this next one, Adonis, I'm really going to struggle to see them come back into this.
And there's a huge issue in the mismatch on the solo lane. Baskin, level 18, 4 levels above Khaos, is just going to be able to constantly dive him, sit on him, and no amount of peel in the world will kill Baskin.
There's too much focus on this Sobek for me, Adonis. There's too much focus so far. We've seen people ban it against SoaR in the first set of the day from Envy, and this time enemy drafted away early on because they don't want, you know, Jigz to have it. You either ban it or just deal with it. Like, instead of putting his solo lane and forcing yourself into a matchup that's not going to be great for you, into a Nemesis.
I mean, it's rough. I mean, it's really rough playing a Sobek from behind, and I could see enemy. I mean, they've utilized Sobek in the past.
Yeah.
Both PainDeViande, Marauder has played it before, but I agree. This might be worrying too much about Jigz' Sobek and less about their Sobek.
Exactly, and just forcing it into the comp just so the enemy team can't have it. I mean, granted, though, you would give them Sobek Nemesis Raw, which isn't the greatest thing in the world.
That's not the greatest thing in the world either.
But at the same time, like, maybe just put it in the support role and don't draft the combo so you can put someone else in the solo that could have a bit of a better impact. And there's no offense in saying that. I just feel like Marauder's player this so far, it's not worked out against the Baskin, potentially the best player in the world.
Oh, well, Gold Fury has respawned, and SoaR looking for a pick right now. Shatter does get away, but PainDeViande in an awkward spot. Quickly dashes, though. So.
Yeah, that flop. If that would have connected, that could have spelled lights out for Kumbhakarna, and he wouldn't have had
Marauder's
his
by
passive.
himself.
Although his passive may still be up. Pluck will land onto Jigz there from Marauder. Marauder going to tail whip away. Snoopy's trying to line up a shot, but he can see the PandaCat's waiting for him around the corner.
And they got Marauder's ult.
Just get the ult for free.
Nothing wasted, and that's what's so strong. So we're going to take any poke war. Again, they have the raw, so they want poke wars. They want to just do a little bit of damage, force some relics, force some ults, and then back off, reset, heal up, and then do it again. Now baiting this Gold Fury really well. And Marauder's dead.
Oh my goodness me, he got one shot off and that was the end of him. Next up on the list, it's going to be the boys in the jungle. Shat is very low, going to get sniped out by Metyankey, but get away. Forced to sprint was PainDeViande there to get his boys out, and now SoaR goes straight back to the attention of the Gold Fury.
Enemy have to give this up. Khaos and Pain, the only ones right now nearby to stop it, and they're pushing forward, but quickly the Gold Fury's done, and SoaR have extended their lead to about 7,000. And Baskin still going deep onto PainDeViande, but I think I heard the yawn there.
He's level 19 at 19 minutes in the game. Who's going to stop that solo lane Amaterasu now? He's just too far ahead.
And this is, I mean, I don't want to say that enemies playing like they are in their online split, because I think SoaR is playing this really well right now, but we're not seeing the coordinated enemy. Again, big misplay on that first Gold Fury, not respecting SoaR's rotational power. And then on that last Gold Fury, Marauder in a bad spot, gets his ult forced, and then he kind of just walks up by himself. I mean, in that spot, if you're going to fight, you got to push everyone in. Like, Marauder can't just sit there and get belly flopped by a Bacchus and die.
I really feel sorry just trying to put the whole group to bed already on day one. Like, if they can put them to bed on day one, walk into day 2 and 3, knowing that they've got to win a couple of games and they're through, great situation to be in, especially when you take on, you know, enemy here, and if you do well in this set, perfect situation.
Denial versus enemy is going to be huge, and honestly, Denial looking very clean against Envy, almost no mistakes from them. This is a team that came prepared as well, and I'm really excited. You know, Envy is definitely bottom of this group, but if enemy can start showing up again, like, those three are going to be really close.
Shut it, looking for a player, Metyankey, but the Sanctuary will keep him busy there from taking any damage.
Baskin TP'd in,
walk
too.
away, and now Baskin's coming in close with the TP. Meanwhile, mid lane.
Ram to the sky. Also, one more to the sky in the mid, but no follow-up right now. Shattered barely able to get out of that one. We did see Baskin able to kind of chase him
Snoopy
down.
Around the back, looking for a hot play. Shad walks right into the laser, and you're not going to live long if you do that, my friend.
Oh, Meditation popped. Baskin is alive, and Snoopy's tanking the tower for now.
Heals.
And there's the heals, man. Like, Baskin's just going to be able to switch stances, and Marauder trying to juke right now, surrounded by 3, doing a good job. Got some damage off onto Met and Snoopy, but PandaCat's the only one left alive on this left-hand side. Khaos and Pain rotate in, but it's going to be another tier 1 tower. The siege from SoaR has been so good, both objectively on the Gold Fury and now onto these towers.
And not only that, you saw in mid lane there, the play they tried to make to fight find a gank in the mid lane. You saw the uppercut come out from PainDeViande, but Zeus cannot follow up on an uppercut. Not like a lot of the mages who have that high damage ultimate. It's just not possible.
Especially his level. He's level 15. Zeus can't do anything. He has no protection items either. Snoopy's snipe might almost one-shot him. It's probably at least 60+% of his life at this time.
It really feels like outdrafted for me. I don't think enemies playing particularly bad yet. We'll have to see in game 2. But for me, it's coming down to pick some bans straight away.
I also think that these are just two very high-level teams, and SoaR are giving a lot more respect to enemy. They are not go-over aggressive. They're just waiting for their windows. And again, it came down to that one gold theory. A small mistake that I think is going to that is the reason this game has snowballed out of control for them.
Well, the way I actually see this as well is the SoaR Gaming team here remind me of the old school EU TSM squad, the ones that when they get a lead, it's very hard to take a lead away from them. Very hard to take a lead away. And they kind of play into that style again. Once they've developed it, they don't give you a window to get back in.
And that old TSM team was the best team in the world at a time. This team is trying to do the same thing. Energy, obviously clear favorites across. They've won every single event this year very convincingly. The only time they came close was Epsilon Invitational against Enemy, like we talked about. But to be fair, they also said they didn't really prepare for the LAN. They kind of just came to enjoy it and just kind of play naturally and raw.
It just feels like the old versus the new in this matchup right now. The new being SoaR, this super squad that was formed that everyone kind of went, meh, we'll see, because we've seen so many of these super squads form before that never perform.
I thought it was going to be good. And it is good.
You can hope and dream, but sometimes it doesn't come to fruition. Right now, though, it's showing it is.
I mean, this team is just so incredibly gifted mechanically, and just all of these players love playing with pressure. They all have a very similar play style, and you can see it right here. Jigz flopping forward, Pain able to immune that, but enemy are just going to lose their red buff, and they have no answer.
And enemy can't really do anything to defend. Can they really defend tier 2s here?
You have to defend a tier 2. You can't let this game snowball out of control. I talk a lot about you need to pick a point to just all in, and even if you lose the fight, like it's one of these things, right? If enemy just let SoaR keep on gaining these leads and gaining these leads, eventually it's going to be a 15, 20k gold lead. And even if they play a fight perfectly, they can't fight through the item lead.
Honestly, guys, if you're watching at home now, this is not deja vu. This is not SoaR versus Envy. This is SoaR versus Enemy as PainDeViande goes to sleep for the second time this game.
And Khaos by himself as well. He's going to burn his relics, but there's not even a point. He's going to die before, just as the Sanctuary ends, bursted to 0. And now it's going to be these two towers on the right-hand side. Shattered, trying to get some farm in on his own. You can see Jing in the mid as well. Good job by enemy there, split pushing, knowing that they're not going to be able to stop anything. Try and get some farm across the map. That's actually a very SoaR-like thing to do, a very Cloud9-esque style.
Well, enemy were one of the first ones to really try and do it as well. When they were behind, they're very good at turtling and holding on.
Bastet as well, which was banned out.
And if they had that, it could have been a bit worse than losing 2 tier 1 towers there. Meanwhile, SoaR, though, going to siege up the tier 2 on the right-hand side with 2 members busy pushing the lanes. The Crocodile, he's not going to smile right now. He's just got to watch his tower fall.
And SoaR sent Baskin back. He's got teleport just in case anything happens on the right-hand side. And actually chasing out PandaCat. PandaCat has ult, so he's relatively safe. And there it is, just trying to get away. Gonna go to his... No!
Oh, he's gonna take this trade as well. Panda's gonna go for the 1v1 against a tank Baskin. The knockup comes into play, agilities, but doesn't agility very well, and Baskin's happy with that. The extra damage coming through, Sanctuary used as well. Baskin holds off on some of the damage, and Baskin wins.
I mean, at this point, I talked about it too when Oceans took that 1v1 against Vedium. That's just one of those things where his team is so far behind, he's got to try and make an outplay. The only thing is your melee range boxing and Amaterasu, whose passive is going to be... Actually, auto attack, you're going to be taking more and more damage. Baskin's level 20, and there was no chins on the side of PandaCat. If he has chins there, he might be able to chunk through Baskin's health pool, but at this point, he just wasn't deep enough into his build. You could see he's picked up the Wind Demon now, but I think it was only tier 1 in that fight.
Well, tier 2 in that fight is going to go down now as well, and it's all up to the Phoenixes. Fire Giant and all 5 members of SoaR as well. Looking to siege it down with the man advantage. The focus on PainDeViande is working very well for them. Already dead. Baskin credited for the kill. Baskin staying in this fight, tanking up the Phoenix a lot here. A little bit greedy from the solo laner here, but he's not getting punished for it once again.
And he resets into the raw heal. Andinster's dove. Khaos easily shattered, trying to answer back on Andinster, but Marauder's already dead. 15-0. Not a single kill.
Put a fork in it, it's done.
For enemy.
That's it. 15-0. Phoenix on the right-hand side going to go down as well with 26 minutes in the game. I've not seen stomps that land like this apart from Orbit versus Sanguine. That's the last time I saw something like this.
I don't even think it was this brutal. I mean, I think Sanguine at least got a single kill. But
this reminds me of the Envy set.
This is the group of death. And it's clear that SoaR is death, and everyone else is
the Grim
group.
Reapers. Yeah, they're the Grim Reapers. That's basically it.
That's what the group of death truly meant, was that SoaR was just going to come and stomp. Enemy definitely have some stuff to work on. This is only game 1, though, so not too big of a deal for them.
I mean, it isn't, but then we saw what happened. The enemy's got. Hopefully, enemy can answer back. I feel like they really lost this in picks and bans for me. They picked the Sobek early on. I can understand why you don't want to give it to him, but then you pick a Sobek into a Nemesis, then you're going to put it solo lane and pick a Kumbhakarna as well. And Kumbhakarna does not really set up a Zeus very well. He doesn't set up anyone in his team to do heavy damage.
Well, I thought the idea would be that PainDeViande would really focus on peeling, but he's actually, again, been the one in the back line trying to... Anytime Amaterasu ults, you know, he was trying to look for that, but...
That works with Kumbhakarna. Take an assassin out of the fight. Either you then have to capitalize on that assassin being out of the fight, or you have to disengage. That didn't happen. They just ult and nothing happens.
And the main issue now is that enemy haven't really had the ability to team fight. The first fight they had, they were kind of just caught with their pants down, trying to sneak a Gold Fury. They died. Second team fight was just Marauder getting picked off in a bad spot, had to use his ult, and then goes to contest the Gold Fury by himself and dies. And so we haven't even seen enemy have the chance to team fight properly.
I know we're talking about
28 minutes.
I know we're talking about enemy a lot here, but full credit to SoaR Gaming coming into this land, man. This is looking absolute dominant from them right now. I think even Energy at home are probably looking at this right now going, all right, boys, we may have competition this year. And Orbit as well would be like, well, we thought we don't have to deal with Energy. We might have to deal with these guys too.
I mean, Eager and LG looking really good as well. Some teams not making it to Worlds that deserves to be at Worlds. I can already tell you that.
Thinking about this as well, LG will not be happy with this right now because they're going to have to face SoaR. Like, the number 2 team out of that group has to face the number 1 team out of this group.
It's only day 1. It's only day 1.
I'm putting it down already. This is, if they continue like this, SoaR will take the group in spades.
Marauder.
Right now, they're just taking more kills. Is anyone on this team going to die?
No. Let's take a look at healing before SoaR in this game. 16,000. Highest damage, 11,000 on the side of enemy. And Shattered trying to make a play happen. The raw snipes just to pad the stats there.
One by one, like lambs to the slaughter. SoaR Gaming take out enemy in convincing fashion here. Something we've not seen in a while. Nice, easy game 1 for SoaR.
Their easiest game after dominating Envy. And again, that was a much cleaner game, I think, from, against Envy. I think they got a little bit loose, didn't really play the safest. Then we saw Denial take the stage, played that really calculating game where no one made, virtually any mistakes. And I think this was SoaR's like, okay, no mistakes this game. Play this clean. Enemy's an incredibly talented team. Don't let them have an edge. And honestly, beating a team that convincingly, a team like Enemy who definitely came with high hopes, it's gonna be hard for Enemy to really break that doubt in their minds. Like, that's gonna affect them.
The only thing I could actually see in that game overall that we saw out of Enemy where they drafted their own composition was the Susano. Everything else felt like counter picks. It felt like they were trying to counter-engage off SoaR's composition. Why not draft for yourselves?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to not see the Hunbats again. We didn't really see the Susano have the effectiveness that was intended. But again, SoaR really snowballed that game pretty hard off of, 2 early Gold Theory fights. There was no picks in that game at all. It was only when everyone was grouped up. There was no one really out of position. It just happened to be that SoaR played their composition perfectly.
Yeah, perfect composition and perfect play from those boys. Fantastic overall, really. I mean, what do you expect to see not SoaR do, but Enemy do next game?
Enemy is actually a team that has pretty deep strats.
They can go
We don't really see them as much. I think Energy is probably Orbit, actually, the team that we see a really wide variance in each draft every single game. But Enemy has some things, and I think they're going to realize that the Zeus, this style of protect our, really hard damage mid laner, not going to work out for them. I expect a different style.
Well, let's find out what they can do in game 2. Analysts, take it away.
Group of death or group of the dead? Honestly, none of these teams are really looking as hot as a lot of people honestly kind of thought.
No, not at all. It was definitely the Mama with the Rama that last game that just carried it in the late game. I feel like you can't give these options to Baskin, where you put a Guardian against him and he's able to proxy between your tier 2 and the Phoenix and just run wild with it.
I like the Sobek pick. It just should have gone to Pain. You got to give Marauder something that he can contest Baskin's Amaterasu with. I mean, that was... I don't know what to tell you. I mean, SoaR just looks so much better than everyone they've played so far. I mean, again, it's only 3 games. 2 of them were up against Envy, only 1 here against Enemy. But that wasn't like we just got outdrafted and then blah, 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 blah. That was just, we got outdrafted, we got outplayed. What do you do? What do you do next if you're Enemy?
I mean, you got to go back to the complete drawing board and just say, well, everything went wrong. everything went wrong, and it was SoaR was doing very well as well, and they had some positives. But I mean, just like, where do you start? Like this is the analyst desk, and the problem I'm having here is choosing which spot to really like dig into.
You don't give Snoopy Ra anymore. This is what I feel. The healing is just too much. The snipes are too much. It's too easy to find gods that can set up the Ra in this game. So you gotta either take it away from him or ban it.
I mean, we saw that happen up against Eager. You know, everyone was just like, all right, we're done giving best Ra. There's no reason to give it to him anymore. I agree with you. They set up so well for him. He's positioning so well. I don't think he's died yet on the Ra, so looking very, very strong.
And like I said earlier, Snoopy hasn't proved himself as a mid laner to me yet. What we're seeing piece by piece, right? He plays the Uller and he does well, and he plays the Rama. And so Ra, yeah, he brought the Ra. Ban it and see what else he got.
That's what I'm curious to see. Like, what else does he have on the table? Because he hasn't been really known for his mage pool. Specifically, he's been playing a lot of Agni recently. But other than that, I'm not really confident in his other mages.
Raijin's the other one we saw him play a lot of during the online split. And Raijin, as we all know, has seen a lot less success thus far during the group stages than he saw during the online portion. So you're right. I think you ban away the Ra, you force him onto something else. The problem is that it's not just Snoopy on the Ra. I mean, Andinster's looked great. Baskin's looked dominant, just like he has basically during the entire online split. Metyankey's looked great. Jigz has looked great. It's just really tough right now if you're going up against SoaR.
Just look at the number differential in healing. There's 15,000 more healing. That's not allowed. Like, that's not okay. Whether you combat it with itemization, whether you got to combat that somehow.
That was a third of enemies' damage got healed away from Ra. I mean, they did 45,000 damage, and then 15,000 of that was healed. I mean, that is insane. What?
I can't believe it myself either, honestly. Even F.here can't believe it right now. It's just all over the place.
I can never believe that, but what is happening, Dom?
Oh, he's still doing something here?
I have
just
no idea
chilling,
what's
man.
going on, but
I got my shoes off.
SoaR, I don't know. SoaR is just looking so strong right now, and going into their last game of the day, they already found 3 wins. They're sitting at 4 points, and if they could close this game out, they should be able to really just make an impact in day number 2, and they could actually clinch in the second day.
And that's huge for them, because then they don't have to show any extra strategies that they may have brought for this. If they're able to keep a couple of those pocket strats in the pocket and don't have to pull those out until super regionals, it really helps them out.
That's the